Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Justin Bayarjon, and I am Dr. VR. I invite you to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Just click the subscribe button on Dr. VR's channel and tap the bell icon next to it to get notified when new episodes drop. And today's episode, I'm thrilled to welcome Danielle Giroux, who is a freelance professional working at the forefront of the XR industry, contributing for XRMust. Danielle used to lead distribution for immersive projects as head of distribution at Astria in Paris, and is now continuing in the field into distribution research. Her expertise lies in creative leadership and shaping the future of XR through strategic growth and innovation. So recently, Danielle attended the South by Southwest XR Experience exhibition, where she had the opportunity to experience every project showcased to the public. That's a big deal. And I'm lucky to have her join me today to unpack it all, from standout pieces to emerging trends, and what it all says about where immersive media is headed. Danielle, welcome to Dr. VR.
It's great to be here. Thanks, Justin. Helps to be unmuted.
Oh, it's
I was just saying,
yeah, how great it is.
how great, yeah, my bio makes me seem like an expert, but we're all quite new in XR in our own ways. So, but it has been a pleasure to really be able to dive in, and it's thanks to Mathieu Gaillet and XRMust that we met, and also that I was able to go to South by, and dive into all those experiences, and now talk with you and find some interesting things to share with people.
Yeah, and speaking of which, what drew you to attend South by Southwest this year, and what were you hoping to find in the XR lineup?
That's a great question. So I had first gone in 2023 when I was at Estrella. There was a panel with distribution focused panel, and the 2024 was the year that I kind of was stepped away. I almost went, but then decided not to go. And then the stars kind of aligned. So I'd been talking with Mathieu, and he said that there was Dane who was going, but that they could definitely use another person. And then my friend's cousin has a place. It lives in Austin, so it kind of all made sense.
Convenient.
Yeah, if I didn't have a place to stay, I wouldn't have gone. That was what I told myself. But I had a chance to go, also stars aligning, to IDFA in Amsterdam. And so I kind of caught the bug again around, the heart in this medium and why people are making it. So I told myself if I could go to South by, I definitely wanted to because it's also a festival that has so many pieces, like Venice, but really different. So you can kind of get exposed to a lot of different ways people are working in the medium.
That's very interesting. For those who haven't been to South by Southwest or experienced XR programming there, like you mentioned, very extensive number of experiences. Can you describe the atmosphere, the setting of the festival when it comes to immersive media?
Yeah, so it all takes place. South by sprawls throughout the city of Austin, so I find it interesting. You kind of have to, unless you're really close, take Ubers. So I do like to talk to the different drivers, because they're usually from Austin, and they'll tell you about how South by just changes the city. And the way that the past, for quite a long time, it's been in this hotel, the Fairmount Hotel. They have this giant convention
Mm-hmm.
room on the, I think, third floor. So you just, when you go there, it's kind of a lot of serendipitous meeting of people that you've met before, or maybe people that who are connected in other ways.
It's a small world.
It's a small world, and you forget that because the hotel is so big and Austin is so big. But then you're like, you have that kind of magic feeling when you're in line, and there's a press day, so I was able to attend that, which is a lot quieter, because
Mm-hmm.
it's just sometimes people are even still setting up a little bit. So that was great. And then the day that it opens, and every day that it's open, there's just a long line that wraps around outside this big room. So there's a lot of energy. People say, when I was there in 2023, they said that the atmosphere was different than it was in 2019. Of course, 2025, people say that too. I still felt like the energy was really great. Obviously, there's weird things happening in the world, and people are balancing and juggling a lot. But in terms of being there, it felt great.
That's amazing. Um, Basically, what you said, it's everywhere, long lineups,
Mhm.
a lot of experiences to, get in touch with. What stood out to you the most this year from the XR lineup? I know it's a big question, but not necessarily the best. What I mean by that, but what stayed with you afterward, emotionally or intellectually after you finished everything?
I guess what stayed with me was the heart behind a lot of the pieces that I saw. So I started making a list of like surprising tear jerkers. So
Oh, really? Okay. Wow.
yeah, yeah. And obviously you're not going into VR to be like make me cry, but it is fascinating when you can be really just like, "Whoa, I wasn't expecting that."
Yeah.
Um and so there was this beautiful four-person experience called Traces, which is actually French Canadian studio and yeah.
Yes. Represent.
Represent. Yeah. But that was really beautiful because it was a grief processing experience. And speaking with the director Vali, she was really open about how it was a first experiment to see how people reacted. So getting to speak with her in the beginning and then throughout the studio, throughout the festival was really cool because then she was having this feedback in real time, and that definitely stayed with me. And I think a few others too. It was an interesting experience because you had to contribute yourself. So in the beginning, via your smartphone, you were asked to share an image that represented some sort of grief, and they did say because it was grief processing, but without it being a therapeutic tool, or it's not like rooted in any sort of psychoanalysis or anything like that. It's really an artistic project. But regardless, it does make you reflect on loss and what that means. And I had been to an ambiguous grief ceremony not that long before, so it was an
Hmm.
interesting thing because that was very analog and this was very digital. But there had been this like a continuation of inquiry into like what does it mean to hold the weight of this. And so she really we visualized that together in this virtual space. And so that did get me. And then there was I did talk to you about that project, all about Teacher Lee, which is
Yes.
yeah, it was at Venice, but this was the first time I got a chance to see it, and just the resilience, the way that they through the animation and the mix of story, integrating videos of protest, because it's really about censorship during COVID in China, and how this one person really just consistently over time through online activism was able to draw attention to the white paper protests. So
Hmm.
it, things I didn't know about, but had seen clips of, and so putting it in that context with the animation was just really really beautiful.
Were, were they these pieces active or passive pieces?
They were both. So Traces, you're walking around, and so you can see the other. They were using I believe a latency tracking system with Traces
Nice.
because yeah. So you can see the other figures, and you do need to do different things. Reach out, and that will activate. There were some, if I remember correctly, some haptic reactions where it would vibrate. But not overly, not a game at all.
Okay.
There were some that were kind of gamified. There was this really beautiful project called Symphony, which was that team was so like VR enthusiasts, and they really were like inspired by Beat Saber. One of their team members is actually like top 150 Beat Saber scores in the US.
Oh my God, that's a big deal.
That's a big deal. Yeah, yeah. So Symphony was so cool because it was really game. You're trying to
Yep.
match the notes, and it's like orchestra inspired. But with Teacher Lee and Traces, it was delicate. You had in All About Teacher Lee, it's like these paper uh, paper airplanes as symbol of like tweets
Yep.
and posts. So you're picking it up and you're throwing it, but you're not. You have to do that to advance the story, but it was in a soft way.
That's so
So
interesting. Wow. In a previous chat we both had, you talked about some moving moments, like you just mentioned. You mentioned traces. You mentioned Teacher Lee. Um, the experience Uncanny Valley is completely different. And it was presented at South by Southwest, of course, and it's a piece that really stands out for its immersive theater roots. Um, how did that background shape the VR storytelling in a festival context?
it was really cool. It was actually the first project that I had a chance to do. So I had gotten there the actually no, I did Honey Fungus before the press day. That was
Oh,
thanks to the artist Jonah King. He said it's ready, you can come in. But then I'd signed up for this project, and I mean it's really cool to see the evolution of their theatrical performances in this medium,
hmm,
because they're there with you, and there's certain times that you embody a character and you're asked questions, and you have to respond to them, and then they kind of improv with what you say.
that's
Obviously,
so cool.
it's so cool. Yeah, yeah. And it was really just it was kind of dystopian, you know, very punk feeling to it, and makes you question, like autonomy and data privacy and everything like that. But they just had so much energy and enthusiasm in, the actors. I really felt part of it, and that was cool.
So basically, you're in the middle of a theater piece, play, and you're part of the action, and the actors are molding their performances around what you say and do.
Well, there's a script, there's a story.
For sure.
So like you start in a prison cell, and you have a guard that's like talking to you, kind of like giving you a tutorial, but it's like wrapped in the story of you being in a prisoner, and being we're arrested because we were protesting.
Hmm.
And so you're not alone. There's another viewer with you. So it was cool because I knew it was Eric from Meta. We were in line together. We were like, oh, we're both going here. So then we were both in that experience, and but the way that the world is designed, I mean, it's a beautiful VR chat world. Um, uh, by Rick Trewick, I believe. Yeah. So I mean, it's gorgeous. It is dystopian, so it's like dark, but it is beautiful.
Hmm.
And so the way that the world is designed and the story is written, it's kind of like, there's a hallway, so you have to go down this after you you're broken out of prison by another character, and then you're following, and they're telling you, come this way, we have to go, we have to do this, and the story unfolds in a very there's kind of a chase. We need to solve things. We need to make a decision at the end that's kind of connected to these bigger questions of, what do you fight? Do you stay,
Hmm.
or do you go to the future and build a new world? And so yeah,
That's great. That reminds me a little bit of the meta movie kind of setting when
mm,
there's a straight narrative line, and then you delve into the adventure with them, and then
yeah,
you interact with the actors in real time. I met Witten Frank, who was an actor from Ferryman VR at
cool.
VRTO, and it was right before Uncanny Valley, because I wrote a book on motion picture on motion
Oh,
capture, so it's all about Uncanny Valley anyway. So I met her before they actually started doing Uncanny Alley, and she was very excited about it. She was explaining to me it sounded insanely good, and yeah. So what is it like? Are the actors there present, or are they somewhere else interacting with you at a distance? What's it like?
yeah, they're also remote. But at the end,
Wow.
they had us. They were like, you can meet them, and they were via Zoom, and so you could just have a little check in. They also gave you like a little bit of water and a little token. A lot of the experiences had this like physical token that they wanted to give you, like and it was, so it's cool, that little mix of craft in it. And this was like the token is a bottle cap that they put an image of the character, and then resin poured and made into like a little pin. So it was like a very, they did it themselves. Like they got the resin, they got the image, they made these things, and I thought
Wow.
that was quite sweet.
That is so cool. So is the space huge? Because I'm guessing you have to move around or
You don't
okay.
because it's a VR chat world. So you
Yep.
are moving via
Hmm.
your controller. They had a nice system in place to restrict the peripherals, which I appreciated because sometimes in the VR chat with like a certain movement dynamics, I get nauseous.
Hmm.
Which I was talking to someone, they were like, "Oh, I trained myself out of nausea." I'm like,
Can't fight it. I'm still fighting against it. It's not going away.
yeah, but this mechanism, I didn't have any nausea, so
Wow, that's so cool.
that
I know there's a French company in the south of France who are developing a device that prevents motion sickness that you add to the headset. So I'm just wondering.
interesting.
Yeah, I know. I think I'm gonna have that person soon in my on my channel. Stay tuned. But what I mean is that yeah, I mean, when I tell developers that I'm teleporting, they look at me. They're not happy. So are you one of those who teleport in VR?
It's like a weakness, but it's not. I think it's. I like a teleport. I don't. I
Of
don't know.
course. Yeah.
But the restriction, I think that was a cool thing to have it like just when I moved, it kind of narrowed my view. So I
Yep.
just, yeah,
They
it
do
was
it in
cool.
Batman Arkham Shadows, the one on VR and Meta. When you walk, you use your joystick, you move forward, and it narrows the light. So it's like you,
Yeah,
and it kind of works.
yeah,
It kind of
yeah.
does. Um,
It was nice. They were like really thinking about that user experience. I felt.
for sure, yeah. So also a project that was very close to my heart because it was my favorite of 2024, Oto's Planet. That is directed by Gwenaëlle Francois, who I interviewed not too long ago. Was one you followed from free development to premiere. What does it feel like to witness that kind of growth? Because it's distributed by Estria, especially in a setting like South by Southwest.
I mean, you just feel so happy for the person uh, to have it out. This was another experience that they had little pins to take away. So
It's so cool.
um, yeah, so I've got like the Autos Planet pin, which is nice, a little token. Um, and I mean, it's great because you can see a concept. I remember looking at him. We had a conversation first about it, and then
Because Gwenaëlle was there.
well, years before,
Oh, okay, yeah.
and then yeah, we did get to see each other, and I don't think I really had the chance to tell him how much I loved the final result, but it was beautiful and like very sweet, but also having this deeper, not edgy message, but kind of an important message about ownership and about greed. And if you, I guess that I'll have to watch that episode where he talks about it more. But it's just I do really think it's nice it feels good to see works develop and then live outside of just the concept, obviously. And it makes me hopeful for the future
Yeah,
of
and
what.
it's true, and it's such a relevant piece because it deals with borders. It
Yeah.
deals with your neighbor. It deals that sharing the land or not, depending on what's going on. Having to deal with anger from someone you've never like pushed to the you never got into something beforehand, and somebody knew that you're a welcoming person, but then the other one does not really want to share.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that it's hands-free tracking. You don't
Yeah.
get to use your remotes.
Yeah, I love that too. And that little, just like it's a nice way to control where you're seeing, the storyline is unfolding no matter what, but
Yeah.
you get to turn around and go inside and kind of yeah, get up close. And it's very sweet for such a heavy but important topic. So,
It's true, and your connection to the piece grows even more because
mhm,
you're physically in touch with it. Uh,
yeah.
do you prefer hands-free mechanic or using your controllers when doing VR?
I think I do like both. I mean, the hands free can be really nice, but I like when there's a haptic, a vibration that
Of
kind of like
course.
confirms what you're doing, or
Mm.
um, I do think that can be, you know. face jumping, that piece by Tender Claws was one that also people really love for good reason. But it's like they're really playing with like the affordances of the tech and the eye
Yeah.
tracking. That was their big inspiration. So that one, when you succeed in the swapping, the jumping of characters through making eye contact, it'll vibrate. Even though I'm not doing anything with my hands really.
Yeah.
Well, I did activate it through clicking, but at the same time it feels like it's more my eyes controlling things. But that like confirmation with the vibration was good. But I don't feel like we really missed out on anything with Otto's Planet
It's super
because
immersive.
those movements are so, you're just turning the planet, or
Hmm.
you get to knock the fruit down, and it's like these like very small, and it fits the miniature animation. So I thought that it's just nice to see different ways of working with the
I
affordances
agree. I
of 3D.
agree. And when absolutely, when I was at Stereopsia in Belgium last December, I had the chance to experience haptic gloves, and it just changes the whole thing because you're talking about, haptic feedback. And once you grab something with hands-free mechanic and you feel it in your hands, this is just so next level. And that's a piece I would like to experience with haptic gloves because you just get to, move things around. You get to feel, yeah, we're just playing
Yeah,
with our hands right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
So something that has always interested me in the VR festivals are their themes.
Mm.
It's themes, and I remember us recently chatting about a theme you found this year at South by Southwest. So, why did you feel there was a theme? Can you expand on that, maybe? And what was your, through line you noticed? What was the through line you noticed across the XR pieces this year?
Well, I mean that I when I left, I really did feel that there was this a theme that was really consciously curated and involved both the layout of the room and the types of works being shown. But then I had a chance to speak with Blake, the lead curator behind it, and he said that this is a common thing, that people will take their own themes, but they're not working in that way. He's looking more at the spectrum of technology and
Mm.
affordances, and the ways people are creatively engaging with these new mediums, or rethinking things. So he just is really trying to show the variety, because he also knows that there's so many audiences that are just, it's really a diverse audience that comes in. It's a lot of industry, but industry like in terms of, you'll have people from um Coors Light, or Coors big beer, to like education, universities, and everything in between. I don't know if that's the spectrum, but
And
so he's
enthusiasts and pure
enthusiast.
enthusiasts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he said that it's, and I agree with this as well. There's something about VR that people tend to go in, that you look at it, you experience it differently. So you'll come out, people often have really different views on one singular experience, but also themes in general in his festival. So for me, what I was like so certain that there was something where, because when you walked in, you had the face jumping experience with all these eyeballs moving. They had made it a three part screen that was showing that, and then you went into more theatrical pieces where you had the Craig Quintero's trilogy,
Hmm.
which was, that piece is just for you, is the name of the three together. And then, Uncanny Alley is next to this dome. They had the first dome experience, and that was kind of connected to me, all these music pieces. There was like 5 pieces that were really rooted in exploring how uh, music and the music industry is connected through this technology, which Blake did say that is something that he does try to have a focus on. But then,
Hmm.
so it felt like it was like a very light, and we had Otto's Planet, which is kind of that, it's light but it's not. And then those symphony projects, which is quite playful. Honey fungus, which is like this very esoteric, um, futuristic. It's a fascinating inquiry, but it's not like very dark or heavy.
Hmm.
But the deeper that I went in, there were quite a few pieces that seemed to be speaking to loss and these collective memories. There was like Address Unknown Fukushima. And there was the which is a piece by Arif Khan and Serendipity Studios that he was in Japan, and he had this research project that involved him going to Fukushima and photogrammetrically capturing the space, and then speaking with people that had lost, were not never able to go back. So pairing that, which was also near Fly to You, which is a piece about North and South Korea and the divide, and also that the story of those memories of loss. And so to lost to a place, but then going back to that place through these very beautiful poetic point cloud explorations into space. And that was also near this really heavy piece, but beautifully done, Any War, Any Enemy, which was someone described it as VR poetry, and it's by Lena Herzog, and it's really about, it's kind of showing the fear of through animation and just music of nuclear war, but in a poetic way. And that was also near this other piece, Ways of Knowing, that was really about um, nuclear policy in a way, but through this. Sunny is the name of the artist, and that require. I mean, I would say all of these could have their own research paper and interview, and I'm barely touching on them, but it felt like we went from this like light and like kind of theatrical exploration and musical, and then as we went in deeper, there were the constraints of censorship with All About Teacher Lee, and that kind of was near these other pieces. Like there was also Shelter, which was a piece about Ukraine, and 360 video of going into these different underground shelters and just
Mm.
seeing the everyday lives of people. So we have this like this optimism juxtaposed with the realities and the fears. And then it doesn't fit perfectly. There's like the choice 2 and 3 were kind of over next to this other piece, an AR piece, 1906 Atlanta,
Oh,
which was
nice.
Nani de la Pena and a whole crew of folks based off of this research paper that was that. Yeah, so that was near the choice. So you kind of have these like also
Oh, okay.
inquiries into the history and policy right near each other, different lens entirely. But yeah, that was kind of my, and I'm missing a bunch. You can't talking with Mathieu from XRMust, he was like, don't try to make one article with every single piece, because you're not gonna succeed. And I think me reaching out to you is me trying to just convey that everything does really relate to each other. Like everything has, yeah, it's amazing to be able to have experienced as much, because I do feel like it built this bigger view of what we're trying to do, which is tell stories that are impactful.
Yeah, and honestly, you're doing quite a great job at summarizing everything you have seen. It's a very tricky one, but you're succeeding in it. And I'm wondering, were there any curatorial decisions that surprised you at South by, either in a good way or in more like a, that's kind of odd type of way?
Um, there only maybe one. There was this really beautiful three. It looked like it could have been in like a whole immersive space called Origins, and
Mm.
it was very cosmic space. Uh, I didn't have that much time to spend in there, but it was a smaller screen, still quite big, but it felt like it was you know, just a seed planting for what could be a big space.
Mm,
Um,
got
but
it.
I mean, I think that it was really exciting to have it to see a dome, and I got to run into someone that I met years ago from the Creative Full Dome Network, and she was just like, "This is the first time, and this is amazing," because there's been a lot of talks about, okay, how do we, because there can be some interesting crossover with VR to the dome, and it's tricky. It's not simple or straightforward, but just to see it in that space and to be all together in that immersive animation, that was a music piece. It was by Polly Spree, and they started out the presentation in the dome with kind of an anecdotal, the heart behind, the reason behind why they did this,
Ah,
because
interesting.
and yeah, and so that was beautiful, and makes it really grounds you in why it's made, which I think for me it was kind of my main inquiry coming to South by, was why VR? Why are you doing this? And some of the answers to that question were because I can, which to me speaks a lot about the like, just like the need to make. I think it's a very human thing, and certain people find these elements where it's like, whoa, I can do this, and then they launch forward with it, to honestly, I think the betterment of a lot of people who are involved in the project get to see the project, and just like the ecosystem of making in this medium, and probably others as well. And then there's others that, they had these elements for years, and were building to it, and it wasn't this like, easy straightforward thing. Not like it's ever really easy, but they really had to work for it, and it's because they believe in the medium, or they're really excited about the different flowing with the those limitations of the tech. The talking with the Tender Claws team, they've done things that are so different throughout the years. He told me that one of their early games was that they made was totally out of technology with leaf blowers. So
That's so cool.
isn't that cool?
I'd love to do that.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it was so neat, and so they follow what is possible, and play with that and push it. Um, and a lot of people are doing that, I think. But
Mhm.
it's just cool to step away and then come back and see these the ways people are flowing with what they can do.
For sure. Do you think South by Southwest XR curation this year succeeded in giving a snapshot of where immersive storytelling is at in 2025?
I mean, it's hard to compare. I would say definitely, but you know, I think every festival that is gathering new pieces, or like we're talking in New Images in Paris is
Yep.
happening right now,
Hmm.
and there's a lot of new titles. I know the market there is bustles, um, but I think that they do build upon each other, and I think that the festivals are the place where people can really get another contact, or another route, or I want to say piece, like some sort of uh, shot at continuing to make. It's
Mm.
not necessarily the place where you're maybe it'll change, but it's not like film where you're going there to sell. You're not going there necessarily to make a deal. You're there to because you were able to get there, which is really tricky. And it shouldn't be so complicated in the future, but where we're at right now, it is. It's really
Yeah.
tricky.
Hmm.
But at the same time, it does. You're going to meet people that you wouldn't have, and continue to be able to maybe grab a rope to make the next thing.
That's the beauty
Um,
of it.
yeah, yeah.
When you were moving around the festival, how did the non VR crowd perceive XR? Was it curiosity, skepticism, indifference?
I mean, it's a good question. I think that, I mean, South by I said it sprawls throughout the city, so there's like different hotels
Hmm.
nearby that have totally different industry events and panels. So if you make your way to the VR section, you want to be there. I my only real it's an anecdotal experience. I did step to one panel that was in a different hotel, so just a 5 minute walk. But it was I sat down next to someone and we started talking, and she was not at all in VR, and she had she'd seen the piece The Art of Change, which is like really beautiful. People are talking about it online as well, but it's like it's gorgeous, and it is that it's in that to me that music section because it's a musician and
Okay.
an illustrator working in quill, and they really worked in real time. I think from what I understood from their stories, like
Wow.
bringing his instruments and drawing well to make this beautiful musical story because it does have some story to it. She had seen that piece and she said just said it felt so human, and I was like, wow, yeah. I think when someone who's not in VR and they see a piece and they're inspired in that way, I think it's true. I mean, I felt it was so human too. So, um, yeah, I
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on what you just said because I'm wondering if you think that South by Southwest and the people who attend still sees VR as a gimmick or as a true artistic and narrative medium. What do you think?
I'm not sure. Honestly, I did see that like we had talked before and that question kind of came up, and I can't really say what other people see. I mean, true artistic for if we look at art history, like there were so many in the previous century. There was this whole period of time where there people were trying to define what art was, and these
Yeah.
isms, and it was very it seems reading about it, it's very intense
The
and
institutionalization of mediums and media and what tools are we using? Is it legit art? Is it not? What is art?
right. So I mean, it's deep questions. There's also these questions of art and craft, and like how if the maker is so far from the what's being made, how much are they and it's I think it's fascinating. I love those questions, but I can't say. I mean, I do think that it's there's a lot there. I don't know what gimmick means necessarily. I think it can definitely be pulled apart, but there's probably a mix of both.
I don't know what gimmick means anymore because at this point we're using so many different tools to create. A couple days ago, well, weeks now that we're able to turn our photos into a Studio Ghibli type of image
Right.
through OpenAI. And then you have Hayao Miyazaki who says it's an insult to life itself.
Yeah.
um, I understand his point of view because he's a man who dedicated his entire life to his craft, and it's
Yeah.
beautiful. I think it's in one of his latest films they worked on a scene that is about 8 to 9 seconds, and they dedicated like I think 15 months just for that thing because it's handmade. So I understand what he means by that, but at the same time I see AI as a tool to create, not just as we should not use AI just to create, but we should use it as a tool to help us create. Just like I believe some stories are meant for VR and some only, and some are not meant for VR and they're not in their right medium. Do you know what I mean? So I'm just thinking some different tools and techniques are not gimmicky. They're mostly just tools that we should use and make
Mm.
the most of them.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I feel like as we're talking about this, I'm thinking about gimmick as like something that's trying to trick or woo
It's all,
or
yeah, of course. Hmm.
like this more exploitative, like taking versus giving. And I think a craft, you're really giving a lot. You really are pouring time, and I think that's the fear about like people that are deep in these more analog crafts is okay, we're taking away that I don't know if it's like a work ethic thing or if it's like the proximity with the making. But when I do speak with people that work in AI, I are creatively, artistically are doing things. Like for example, there's this one project which I absolutely love. I wrote a little write up on it, and it did get the, I think, the jury award. It was Reflections of Little Red Dot by Chloe
Mm.
Lee. And that piece, she does work with AI in it, but she's crafting the AI. So she had gone to Singapore in 2015 and she had recorded these everyday people talking about their lives, but also how Singapore has changed. There's like, it's a very small space, in terms geographically, there's not that much space, but there's a lot of people and industrialization. And so this, it's so fascinating because it's like critiquing capitalism as well as just being very intimate and soft. And she used their words and with the AI to kind of uh, generate these images that was overlaid with actual drawing, virtual drawings and obviously their, well, not, maybe not obviously, but their videos were also into their, as in the experience as an archive. That was kind of, she had this analog projection, because it was MR, so we could see her hand. You could put the projection slide in the projector, and then it would virtually project these stories and had with these different layers of visuals. And it was just, that is craft. Like
For
she
sure.
went there, she's playing with the technology in a way that has the heart in it. That I think that it can be subjective. It can be kind of, it depends, but I feel like my takeaway with and connection to this question from South by Southwest is that um yeah, you, when there's heart and like soul in a piece, you can feel it. And when it is a gimmick, when it's done to just kind of like woo, or seen more as like a business model, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. There's also heart there, but it's different. It's not the same as what I would say is like artistic and coming from that place. I Yeah. But I think everything does have its value, because even when we see something as a gimmick, then at least we can know, we can be like, okay, that's gimmicky, and we can begin to like put words on on that, because it is subjective. And maybe even a muscle to be able to visually recognize these AI generated, people call it slop. I didn't see any slop. At least in my opinion, this South this festival, it didn't have slop.
That's a good thing to know. You mentioned in our previous chat Walrus and Blast Theory's no headset model. That's very cool. How are creators experimenting with this form this year? So, are we seeing more hybrid or unconventional formats?
Yeah, so Blast Theories, they had the no headset model. Walrus, sorry about that. That was they had a headset, but it's mixed reality, and it's a model that they're looking to find other content, because it's mixing latency with uh, tracking with something that they do feel can be expanded for entertainment purposes. So it's
Okay.
kind of a game, whereas Blast Theory is definitely no headset, and really it's not a game. It's more like a visual poem in a way. It's story, but it's yeah, so Walrus was interesting because they are really thinking about how to scale and make this adaptable. And so that's what was exciting about what they're doing. The animation was really cool. It was like the secret life of monsters is the concept, and it's gamified. You're looking at a symbol that kind of unlocks this portal, and so that's what they're excited about, is this like mixing of the tool with the story that they chose right now is really this monsters and trying to track them, as like track and log them. And it's kind of a game, like, how did you do at the end is the question. But the actual model, like the format of unlocking a portal, they do see as something that you can put any kind of symbol and have any kind of portal to any world. And you have less weight on the headset because it's mixed reality, so you have less wraparound, so it's lighter. and then you can have multiple people in the same space because you're going from portal to portal.
Wow.
So you can imagine like a user pass through. Um,
That's
you know,
amazing.
yeah, it's pretty cool, and that's also French Canadian.
Represent again. I mean, we're doing great, you know. Where would you say it's the most interesting formal risks that you've seen at South by Southwest in this year's lineup? Were there any others formal risks that were being taken?
Yeah, that definitely. I mean, because it was. I do think going to South by is a risk, but this that walrus team, just because it's like you have a lot of investment that goes in and the timelines and both, and they brought these like they had these printed lights that were pillars that so they had this like whole scenography in a way that was really impressive. Whereas Blast Theory, if you don't, I'll share about that one too.
Please.
That was on a different floor, so you kind of had to go a little bit. It's not out of your way, but it's not with the main group. There were a few that were like that. But you took off your shoes, and there were these mats on the ground that represented a home, and you were given a piece of paper that showed like what mat was which part of the house, like kitchen, living room,
I love it.
bathroom, and you were with maybe I think you could have as many as 8 people. I think we had 6 of us, and from I did listen to the Kent By episode of him talking with the artists, and the and Blast Theory, uh, and so that was really really beautiful to hear what their reflections on VR, because they're not working in VR, but like Blast Theory has been kind of doing a lot of different immersive storytelling things throughout the years, but VR I think she said was in the 90s when they did it, and they haven't come back. Maybe that
Wow.
it's maybe 2000s, but it was like a whoa, that's I want to look into this more. um but yeah, your where you walk affects the screen what you see, and it's like a normal screen projected, but you have this spatialized sound that there's a couple, and it's kind of like the destruction of this relationship, which to the artist behind it was really very personal, because he was like doing it in reaction to uh yeah, something that happened to him during, I think it was during COVID, like the a lot of people, their couples kind of just like because of being in
Yep.
this tight space, and it didn't make sense and being restricted, and so you as a group kind of walk around the space, but you're not talking, so you'll see that if you are all in the kitchen, then the screen is the kitchen, the projection
That's
is
so
in the
cool.
kitchen, and so
Wow.
you'll see the couple like they're like both looking for different things, and you see the story is different every time, but you kind of have this like you definitely get the feeling no matter what of like there's something wrong with, and but it's also like so comfortable because it's a home, but then they're like destroying it in a way.
I love it.
It
I
was
love it.
beautiful.
So, your perspective of someone who's seen these works grow, like we mentioned, Auto's Planet, or seen a lot of immersive media, gives you a unique vantage point. You know, you come from a distribution background. You're now researching it. How did your background influence what you connected with at South by?
I think there is something about the human connections of this, the role that I've been in, and the just how small this industry is, that you when you know someone, or you've seen their work, or you've talked to them and had like a good conversation, and then you get to see their work again in this context, it's really, it reminds me of just the way that the unique element of this medium, I'm thinking of VR, where we are so close in a way to the makers, the developers, the original concept, because we're in it.
Yeah.
So there I don't I think in the production process everyone works a little bit differently. Some people who are the directors are also the producers and also the animators, and like doing, it's all really small and close. Other people have these bigger studios that they're working with, that they have to go through this process of trying to communicate the idea to get the results. But regardless, there's that proximity that is is really quite moving. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, seeing that it's grown. I mean, for instance, seeing those point cloud pieces that were dealing with memory and loss because of war, and nuclear catastrophe, how they were working with point cloud and thinking about the project Notes on Blindness and On the Morning You Wake, and how they, Pierre Zandrovich had really like been so, just remembering conversations of him. He was the director behind, an technical tech artist behind some of the work, how excited he was about point cloud and like what that meant and what the feeling of it was, and how that's like continuing in a way.
I love point cloud. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
It
Yeah.
is. I think we're not seeing it enough, in all honesty. But every time I see it, I feel like I think it's new again. Because
Mm.
they always use it in a very unique way. And anyway,
Yeah.
I should have an episode on point cloud. It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
totally, because
Yeah.
the tech behind it could be
Oh, for
interesting.
sure. Just like volumetric capture. It's so
Mm.
in VR. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
What's one piece you wish more people had seen at South by Southwest that maybe flew under the radar a little bit?
um I was just looking at like because there's a few that I didn't really get a chance to talk about too much. um I guess I'm I think a lot of people talked about this piece in the Currents of Being, but to
Hmm.
actually have a chance to see it. They were doing 4 people at a time, but it was also not in that main room, and it's haptics. So you were wearing the vest and the gloves, and
Wonderful.
it was so powerful. That one I cried as well,
Wow.
but not because it was beautiful, and it had that element of Teacher Lee of like resilience. That's what got me. The resilience side of things, and also the animator behind it. I don't know the details of the production, but that animation just felt like it couldn't. There's no other way of telling that story in and to have that impact, and it felt like the vibrations of the haptics were as choreographed as the visuals. They were so I felt the craft in it.
Oh, that's powerful.
So that was beautiful, and one that we didn't have a chance to talk about yet. There was an interesting one. There was like two Apple Vision Pro pieces.
Oh, let's talk
um
about that.
that yeah we well, there was actually three, but there were two that really stood out, I guess, which were, there was the Cosmos in Focus piece, which is was really beautiful, well done, just kind of like a teaser in a way, to because you wanted more, but also perfect for South by, because you don't have so much time. So that was gorgeous. And the studio, Atlantic Studio, is has been working in this medium and is kind of like always there on that cusp of what's new. So that was cool to see. And the other project, Currents, by Jake Olison, which was so I talked about like the curation of the space, where it started with these like kind of theatrical pieces, and then the music, and then getting into these deeper questions of history and policy, but also like loss and memory. And then we kind of ended, the Currents was the last piece before you walked out, and it was right next to this other AI piece called Sweet, which was like a Dutch piece really questioning
Hmm.
AI, and it was all like sugar and interactive. No headset. That was also a no headset. Uh,
Wow. How did they
but
do it?
how did they do it?
Yeah.
They had like a screen, and it was like an avatar type AI woman who would ask you questions, and then you hit a button in front of her, um, to answer, and also talked with her. There was like a little speaker, that you talked with her.
Wow, that's so cool. What was the headset of choice at South by?
Mm. I think there were a lot of Quest headsets. Um, yeah, Quest 3. There was a Pro.
Yeah, there was a pro. Only one. If you could give one piece of advice to South by XR curators for next year, what would it be?
Um, I mean, they're doing a great job. I think it's a hard industry. just keep going. I
Yeah,
don't think
keep
I am gonna.
pushing.
Yeah, keep pushing. If there's ever one day a market, they do mentorship programs, so I think that that's really helpful.
Nice.
But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how it can connect to other festivals. Maybe they started the South by Southwest. There's a Sydney one. There's, I think, a London one. I wonder if there would ever be like other locations.
Bring it to
Um,
Toronto.
yeah, you could bring it to Toronto.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I keep telling festival programmers, creative directors, keep pushing. You're there. You're spreading the good news. You're an ambassador of VR. Just keep pushing. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be seeing all of these wonderful things. So,
Yeah.
totally agree with you. Finally, what gives you the most hope or excitement for where immersive storytelling is heading? Because we're now 10 years into the mainstream, uh, publicly accessed, virtual reality world. So, what do you hope for in the future? Let's see the next 10 years.
I think it's the same as so many people in this space. We're just excited for those places where it can exist outside of festivals to be nourished. So, um, for me, there was a time I stepped away from this industry and considered doing other things, and I'm really grateful to have gone to these gatherings because then what gives me the most hope and excitement are the reasons why people are compelled to make in this medium. And it's deeper than, oh, it was possible. Obviously that's interesting in itself, but it's there's some real desire to share in this intimate and powerful way. So I'm excited to to see how collaboration unfolds to bring it to places that people haven't been able to see it.
Absolutely agree. Let's end on this very positive note. I think it's absolutely great. What's next for you, Danielle? Where can we follow your work, your what you do?
Well, I've said to friends recently, it's like I'm baking a cake. I've got all my ingredients and it's coming together really well, but it's still in the oven. So I'll have to let you know. I'm still um connected and helping out in freelance ways with different studios, but kind of under the radar. And then like I said, there's a lot of work I want to do, but it's maybe I'll share with you in maybe a few months, maybe a year. We'll see. Things
Maybe.
take time.
Yeah, another episode maybe. That'd be cool.
One
Why
day.
not? One day. Thank you so much for being on Dr. VR, Danielle. It was such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Justin. This was really great. We can definitely thank Matthew for connecting us.
Shout out to Mathieu from XRMust, as always.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, Justin. Have a good day.
You too, Danielle. Thank you.